Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and today we're going to delve into another true crime story together. Eric Scott Sills was born on April 27, 1965, in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He went by the name Scott and earned a bachelor's degree in 1987. In 1992, he obtained a medical degree, and in 2013 he earned a PhD in molecular biology. Scott started his medical career at a New York City hospital in the obstetrics and gynecology department before moving to a reproductive clinic in Atlanta, Georgia in 1998, where he specialized in vitro fertilization (IVF). During his time at the clinic, Scott met a woman named Suzanne Stephanie Sills, who was born in 1971 and married at the time. Suzanne was impressed by Scott and eventually left her husband to marry him. The couple used IVF to have two children, Mary Catherine and Eric. They moved frequently for Scott's career, living in North Carolina, New York, Dublin, Ireland, and eventually settling in San Clemente, California. In San Clemente, Scott and Suzanne co-founded a fertility clinic called the Center for Advanced Genetics in Carlsbad. Scott served as the medical director, while Suzanne worked as the office manager and receptionist. The clinic primarily offered IVF services to clients from countries like China, where fertility treatments were restricted. The family lived in a 3,000 square foot house in San Clemente, which cost around $800,000. Prior to marrying Suzanne, Scott had been married and divorced, with two children from his previous marriage for whom he paid alimony. Despite his high income, Scott faced financial challenges. On Sunday, November 13th, 2016, at approximately 6:30 a.m., Scott Sills called 911 to report that he and his daughter Mary Catherine had discovered Suzanne Sills injured at the bottom of the stairs. Initially, Scott referred to his wife as a patient and suggested that she had fallen down the stairs. However, upon arrival, first responders determined that Suzanne was deceased. During the investigation, it was found that Suzanne had passed away around 5 a.m., about an hour and a half before the 911 call. She had suffered severe injuries to her face and neck, with defensive injuries on her hands and forearms. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation, as evidenced by a ligature mark around her neck. A scarf found next to her had been around her neck when she was discovered, but was removed by Mary Catherine when Scott attempted CPR. First responders also noted that Suzanne's right foot was positioned oddly on a lower step of the staircase, despite instructions to place her on a flat surface for CPR. This led investigators to believe that Scott may have intentionally left her foot there, to suggest the stairs were to blame for her injuries. Scott appeared unfazed by the presence of the homicide team in his home, answering their questions calmly. He signed a consent form allowing them to search his house. By speaking with the family members, investigators learned that Suzanne had not been feeling well that night. Suzanne had a history of migraines, which were typically debilitating and required rest in a dark, quiet room. She had been suffering from a migraine that weekend, and Mary Catherine suggested that Suzanne spend the night in her room. She had prepared it like a little hotel suite for Suzanne to rest and recover in. The large pot she carried around was for vomiting in case she needed it during the night, and the empty pill bottle was for the pain medication Scott said his wife took for her migraines. Scott's son Eric reported hearing his parents yelling and screaming around 4 a.m. The police discovered blood matching Suzanne and Scott in Mary Catherine's bedroom, along with clumps of Suzanne's hair on the floor. Suzanne's blood was found on Scott's shirt, and Scott's blood was found under Suzanne's fingernails. Scott denied any involvement in Suzanne's death, attributing it to a potential fall. However, he could not explain the presence of blood in his daughter's bedroom. The police noticed an abrasion on Scott's forearm and a concealed cut on his head, which was covered by a hat. There was no evidence of forced entry. The police uncovered relationship issues between Scott and Suzanne through a text she sent him. "I am trapped. You are killing me. I just want out. We just aren't right for each other." A possible motive for Scott's actions could be his displeasure with Suzanne, posting a topless photo of herself on a conservative online chat room due to a lost bet about Donald Trump's presidential nomination. The police found a printout of Suzanne's conversation about the photo in Scott's office, indicating his awareness of her actions. Detectives also discovered that Scott had attempted to claim a $250,000 life insurance policy on Suzanne. but he stated that the insurance company had informed him he was unable to collect as the death certificate had been classified as a homicide. Investigators also received an unexpected tip from a woman who claimed to have met Scott while Suzanne was still alive. They connected through Facebook, and she revealed that he was infatuated with her. She shared an email that Scott had sent her about 2 weeks after Suzanne's death. Scott's defense argued that the blood found in Mary Catherine's bedroom belonged only to Scott. He had cut his hand on a nail while changing a window screen. The cut on Scott's head was explained by his work on his vehicle, where he burned his arm and hit his head against the hood in reaction to the burn. Wearing a hat was not unusual for Scott, as he routinely wore one during the winter. The defense also argued that the clumps of Suzanne's hair found on the floor were likely from her hair extensions, as it was not uncommon for her hair to fall out. At the time of Suzanne's death, she had tramadol and Valium in her system, as well as a fainting disorder and vertigo during migraine headaches. The defense further argued that Suzanne may have lost her balance and fallen down the stairs, resulting in a spinal cord injury that left her unable to breathe. The ligature mark on her neck was attributed to the family's large dogs, who had the physical strength to accidentally strangle her with a scarf as she fell. K9 DNA was found on the scarf, but the defense attorney made it clear that he was not blaming the dogs for any criminal intent, stating that they were simply acting on their natural instincts. Regarding the motive behind the photograph of Suzanne, the defense argued that Scott was not upset by his wife posting it online, as he had even offered to take the picture for her. Despite a significant amount of evidence pointing towards Scott as the murderer of Suzanne, he was not taken into custody until April 2019, approximately 2.5 years after Suzanne's death. He was granted release on a $1 million bond, but his children were not permitted to reside in the family home with him, largely due to the murder allegations. Scott was determined not to let a murder charge hinder his professional life, as he released a book on fertility just 3 months after being arrested. The COVID pandemic caused a delay in Scott's trial for several years. Finally, on December 19, 2023, Scott was acquitted of first-degree murder, but found guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison on March 15, 2024. Thank you for watching, everyone. What do you think of today's story? Write your opinion about this case. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on new stories from around the world. See you soon. Take care.